dream dreams, schemers paired, market maneuvers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our daily show. This is the Modern Market. We go every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST. We will discuss everything to do with the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. I'm your host, B-Check. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, back with a full house. Going to be a party in here today. We've got legendary Sammy and Bread on the show today. And we're going to get into a lot of important things that's been going on in the markets in the last 24 hours. Number one for the conversation, we've got Pump Fun, 24-hour revenue hitting $5.3 million. That's higher than the next 20 top protocols combined. We're going to talk about Coinbase hinting at their own product, wrapped Bitcoin, to compete with the other original wrapped Bitcoin. And then finally, Goldman Sachs holding over $400 million in the Bitcoin ETFs. We'll get you the information you need on that too. But before we get into the bigger discussion, as well as some other interesting discussion points on the market today, just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice, unfortunately, because it would be illegal to give financial advice, and we also don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, legendary, it is Wednesday. It is the 14th of August. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, doing pretty well. Jet lag is not too bad. It's good to be back, except for the fact that my cooling system, as I said yesterday, broke down, and I'm currently enjoying 31 degrees, around 90 degrees Fahrenheit in my apartment, which is a sight to behold.
I like it. I think that sounds good. I think under deep kind of distress, sometimes you can do your best thinking. It's just pushing you to be better, trying to make sure that you can work under strenuous conditions. Legendary. Is that not something that you like? You don't want to be pushed in that way?
Yeah, I think I have less patience. I'm easier to be irritated, and that's perfect to bring a bit more spice and bring a bit more takes to the show. So actually, maybe I should, when the cooling works again, just turn on the heating for 1 hour in summer to have that extra level of spice and pressure throughout the show.
So we're going to get all the defamatory statements out today. We're going to defame some people because you are not in a good mood. Well, that should provide
to a godforsaken part of the world like me. It's always miserable here. You don't have to worry about any of the fluctuations because life is permanently shit. This is the Midwest of America, by the way.
And that also means, Bread, you are never in danger of defaming anyone on the show, although you are also preparing for a little trip. You're going to be on the road from tomorrow. You're looking forward to that. Is there any prep that you do in terms of, keeping on top of the market while you're now going to be on the road? How are you thinking about
that? Yeah, I'll try to keep tapped in. Maybe not to the same degree. I won't have my PC set up and everything, but I mean, the beauty of this place is you can kind of stay tapped in on Twitter, right? Mobile, and see what's going on, stay loosely connected. And then if I'm bringing my PC, I'll have it all with me in case I really need to jump in. So not a total detox. I'll be paying attention a little bit, but definitely probably up the frequency of butt pics to analytical report ratio that I got going on.
Yeah, Brad saw the potential for legendary to defame and was just like, no, we're just going to go adult content instead. Not an issue for Brad. Sammy, how are you going to compete? We've got defamatory potential content. We've got only Bread content for plus 21. What content are you bringing to the table this week?
I'm going to solve some problems. I'm going to do some drop shipping. I've got this thing, if I remember from last time. So you put that around your head, legendary, and that keeps you cool. So the air comes out.
Just describe what we're looking at, Sammy, for the people who are just listening in.
So this is like an air conditioning unit that you put around your neck. And it's I should really get permission for this.
Yeah. What people don't know is that Sammy is he's in an MLM trying to sell those things. So he goes door to door. So he's practicing on us right now, trying to sell these things. Don't get sucked in. He actually does.
He's got a whole bunch of packages just beneath the desk. This is what moonlighting as a creator in Web3 really looks like.
Decent side hustle, to be honest. I think making 6 figures selling air conditioning units that you put around your neck.
Well, we did say yesterday specifically, this is the modern market. We will move to where the market moves, and if it moves to portable air conditioning units, we will do that. so long as it proves to be a profitable strategy, Sammy. So maybe if you just report back to us in a week or two after you've done the door to door.
Sammy, here's a pitch. Take this back to the people that created it. Make it, put AI in there, and instead of it just like blowing, make it a woman just going like she's blowing on you, and then that'll like really up it.
Talking of AI, apparently, according to Grok, I don't know if you've done the thing where you say, can you create an image of, say, legendary gains or whoever it might be?
Yeah.
I did that, and it came across I'm a woman. I was like, what?
Share the photo, Sam, if you got it. Let's see what Sammy AI is, at least in the mind of, I don't know, I guess, is it in the mind of the AI? Is this what the perception that you're giving off? Do you think it's read all your content? It understands who you are as a person, whether it knows you better than you know yourself.
It's the collective perception of Twitter, yeah.
It knows Sammy better than he knows himself.
It's actually two women. So I've just dropped the link in our private chat for you to have a look at. But it's pretty
Legendary.
strange.
Let's have a look. We're going to get into all the main headlines and all the market updates in just a second as well. But we just want to know what Sammy's Grok spirit human is. Two very attractive young ladies is who Sammy is. Sam, why do you think there's two and not just one? I'm pretty sure everyone else searching for themselves got one individual. You've been blessed with two. Is there any particular reason for that?
Twice the brain power and modesty.
Must be the case. Twice the number of portable air conditioning units, from what I can tell. Look, let's get into all the headlines as usual. Great to have all of us back on the show. Bit of extra few minutes of banter at the beginning to get us going. But there's been a lot going on in the markets as usual. So let's start with some price action. Then we'll get into the headlines from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, starting with Bitcoin. It's fairly flat, to be honest. I think we are at, I'm just going to update the screen in case my screen is wrong. We've got Bitcoin up. Are we up? Yes, we're up. Up almost 4% to over almost 61K. ETH is up almost 4%. Also over 2.7K. I completely missed this move this morning. This looks pretty good. And Solana is underperforming for once, just up almost a couple of percent to $147. In terms of the headlines themselves, we have Pump Fund 24-hour revenue hitting $5.3 million, which is higher than the next 20 protocols combined. They're kind of reaching a point in time at the moment where they're just making too much money and no one else is happy about it. You might have seen a lot of opinion on the timeline about Pump Fund in the last 24 hours saying that they're no good, they're making too much money, they're ruining the space because people are choosing to participate a lot. We've got some interesting quotes to kind of have that discussion here. Who bears the responsibility and what are the implications of a protocol like this making so much money? Next, Coinbase hints at wrapped Bitcoin token to compete with wrapped Bitcoin. Jesse Polak said, this is the person who's building Base, to say it out loud, I love Bitcoin. I'm so grateful for its role kickstarting crypto, and we're going to build a massive Bitcoin economy on Base. People starting to think of Base being the ultimate L2 for Bitcoin, despite there being lots of people suggesting that Bitcoin needs to build its own L2s. I know Brett's going to have a lot of thoughts on that, given that he's been diving into the L2 discussion a lot recently. So we'll touch on that in a moment as well. And then finally, Goldman Sachs holds over $400 million in Bitcoin ETFs. This was coming from CoinDesk. Goldman Sachs held a position in a variety of Bitcoin exchange traded funds. The investment bank, in its quarterly 13F report, disclosed that it holds positions in 7 out of the 11. Its largest holding is in the BlackRock one with 238 million. So just huge holdings being disclosed. We obviously noticed a theme in the last few days, right, where different corporations are raising to buy more Bitcoin, and it seems to be turning up on more people's balance sheets. A couple of notable sales. Got a CryptoPunk Red Hair selling for 27.5 ETH. That Bored Ape Trippy selling for 37 ETH. Real strength in the Bored Ape floor, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second as well. And that's it from the headlines and the price action. Legendary, if you want to head over to our NFT marketplace partner, Mintify, what's kind of catching your attention there? What's the update on some of the floor prices?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only a green market for cryptos, also Bored Apes are up 10% at a almost 11 ETH floor. Mutants up 5% at a 1.77 ETH floor. Pudgy's had a little move back to a 9 ETH floor with a pump of 3.5%, but actually the big winners of the last 24 hours are, on the one hand, Sugartown Auras. They have announced a couple updates on their upcoming game. They are back at a 0.2 ETH floor, which is an increase of 28% over the last 24 hours. And on the other hand, DGOD's had another nice move up to a 1.63 ETH floor, which is a 13% pump over the last day.
Nice. Good call outs there. Some big movers across the board. Legendary, you didn't mention, I don't think, unless I missed it, Bored Ape. Did you mention the Bored Apes?
Yep, was the first collection, up 10%.
Got
for
it, yeah.
5 for the mutants.
Yeah, almost 11 ETH. Pretty impressive to see. I'm recalling this conversation we had a while ago where I made the shout, which was something like, given that everyone was so anti coins because they've got all these people who got in so much earlier and there'll just be continued sell pressure, I felt like NFTs were like a relatively better bet versus the most risky of meme coins, because the selling's been going on. Like if you wanted to sell, you've probably sold already with all of this stuff. And that's usually one of the factors that you want to factor in when you're trying to determine like what's the upside potential when you're considering how many more people are still left to sell. So I don't know. It feels like this stuff has obviously bottomed out at some point in time. But let's go around here as well. Sammy, what are you looking at in this market? What's kind of catching your attention? Then want to hear from Brad as well.
Well, I think so. Legendary covered off quite a few, and I did have Sugartown Auras as a thing that I noticed as the big mover. But I tried to figure out why. Like I had a look, and they just made an announcement that it was just 7, and I couldn't see specific announcements about developments with what's going on there. Legendary, did you find anything or?
Yeah, I think they had this announcement. Let me share it yesterday. That you just mentioned, a whole new world kicking off in probably 7 days. And I don't know if holders have more info on that, but that definitely got a bit of traction and got people excited.
Yeah, it's because I think it's just crazy that post alone pumps the floor like 25%. It's just like, like to me, that's not really news. That's just like an announcement of an announcement kind of thing. I think we're back in 2021 again.
People are so desperate for NFTs to have something that they're kind of just looking for anything. Everything's so few and far between that simple shit like this. It's this old school. Yeah, you're right. Like announcement pumps a coin or token or NFT, whatever. It's kind of like, yeah.
I think that Beanie shared the survey that was done. I think it was done on Coinmarketcap. That said that 80% of players don't believe that will happen on the cycle, and he kind of made the point, if so many people think that's not the case, might be the case to see another pump again. But let's see what happens with NFTs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Zynga's behind them, so to have some sort of game coming in to fruition in 7 days would be pretty bullish, right? Because I suspect it'll be a reasonable quality as opposed to kind of like people on a low budget.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I've got a point to make on some of this, but I want to hear from Brad first. Brad, whether it's to do with the NFT market, which seems to be looking pretty healthy at the moment, or anything else, anything catching your attention in the market today?
Yeah, I mean, it's all my mental capacity is going towards this L1, L2 dynamic stuff. I put my post out on it last night. You're kind of relevant with your thing today, talking about that intense blockchain and activity at an all-time high. And yeah, I mean, we're kind of deep in the throes of these L2s proliferating. I'm trying to understand, and yet, despite that, ETH is struggling, right? So I'm kind of trying to suss out why. Why is that? Is there a fundamental break there, or is it just like a time lag thing, or what is it? So I kind of dug in a little bit over the last few days and put out a report. So that's all my capacity is going to that right now, which is nothing tradable, but it is informative.
Nice. I think maybe let's try and tie some of that discussion into the wrapped Bitcoin discussion, because although maybe on the face of it, I mean, almost certainly on the face of it, people wouldn't necessarily put those two things together, but I think that is part of that specific conversation. Before we get into the bigger discussions today and the headlines, I wanted to just point out one thing, Legendary, which maybe if you bring Mintify back up, I think it would be interesting to note. something that they've added as a feature. Remember how we were speaking about how DeGods have started to talk about NFTs in terms of market caps instead of floors? And this is something we said possibly months and months ago, where it is a bit of an odd situation that we speak about NFTs in terms of their floor price when every single collection is a different size, and therefore it's completely unfair to compare because you're kind of comparing completely different numbers. But one thing that Mintify have done is when you click into a collection, you can actually see the market cap now. So the market cap is one of the first factors that they show you. So they show you floor price, they show you the top offer, and then they show you the market cap before they show you some of the other information. So what I would like to see, or what I think we might start to move towards finally, because this is all, we're kind of seeing it with the meme coin stuff. Like, people talk about it in terms of market cap. And I feel like in order for people to get value, not just comparing NFT collections within themselves, but actually comparing them to meme coins. Like, if this meme coin has a 200 mil market cap and this NFT collection has a 100 mil market cap, I feel like this NFT collection is undervalued versus that meme coin because it has more attention than that meme coin community. So I feel like that's a conversation that we're going to be moving towards, or a comparison that we're going to want to be able to make more than we are right now. Legendary, I wonder what your reflections are on that before we head into the discussion points for today.
Yeah, I still think it's not a perfect comparison because, I don't know, look at a collection like Captains, which have the tokens locked inside themselves. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not perfect because it is a metric that people like, and that obviously has been circulating a lot with meme coin meta. In a similar fashion, we had the discussion why FDV doesn't make sense to look at without knowing the amount of circulating supply. So even though it's an imperfect metric to compare an NFT collection to a meme coin, I'm certain we will use that more and more. And then you will have people caveat that or quote content of that saying, hey, but you have to keep in mind that with this collection, there's actually this and this going on. So this is why you can't compare it. But again, first level doesn't matter. It's an easy number. People like it. And you can compare it with another number.
Sam, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with Legendary. I think it should just be like an indicator. And something else actually that came across my radar that I don't know if has had that much visibility. But so flooring protocol, historically it's been where you've literally locked your NFTs up. And I guess this comparison, this just popped into my head because of the comparison of NFTs to fungible tokens and the swapping between the two. And something that I found that was actually quite a cool feature was you pay 0.04 ETH to swap your particular DeGods or whichever collection it might be for another one of a similar thing within that particular vault. And I was like, okay, that's a little bit different to what it was previously. But it's just like an interesting feature that I kind of came across, I think, in the past 24 hours. And I don't know if it's received much coverage.
Is this flooring protocol V2?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Legendary, you wanted to say something?
Can I select which one I get from the pool, from the vault, or is it random?
Yeah, so you pay. So let's say you effectively, and it becomes a fee generating protocol because you as the end consumer can go in and be like, okay, well, which ones are in the pool? I can then pay a premium to then swap the one that I have for that particular NFT. So you literally do a 1-for-1 swap and just pay. I think it's 0.04 ETH on the Gods collection specifically, but I guess it will vary depending on the collection. And I think that to me was something that was okay. It was like a penny drop moment. There will be people that will want to pay that because they, for whatever reason, maybe don't like the aesthetics of their particular DeGod, but just bought a floor. I think that could be, once that's rolled out across a bunch of other collections, it could get pretty interesting. And maybe that might bring some sort of selective process back to the NFT market and choosing particular traits and things like that.
I think the real hack of all this stuff is like, it just a constant reminder that distribution is everything. That like I saw this in 2017. I saw like everything that we see, like what is old is new again. And it's always like after a little bit of like friend tech was BitCloud, and like it's all just depends on when you come to market, right? And like that is what's prevalent here. So I am taking mental note of all of these different protocols that I think are interesting so that in 3 to 6 years, I can come back and go, look at this cool new thing I've done. And then I'll fucking be king in his castle for a little bit. It's just crazy how much that matters.
Well, I think it is, but I think that comes down to how you package things. and that's the same in any industry.
For sure.
Like
Yeah,
for
it's part
some,
of distribution. Yeah.
some people just don't get a particular feature. They just don't understand it until it's positioned in a way that kind of slaps them right in the face. And I think the mass market needs that sometimes. And I think that's where storytellers come in, because you effectively break it down into layman's terms so that your average Joe can understand it. And sometimes it takes that for it to then get some traction, because before, if you don't have it communicated in a way that people understand, then it's just not gonna work.
And the people in the market matter too, right? Like now that more people care about that stuff now than in 2017, presumably, right? People talk about it, they proliferate. There's more spaces to like give it out to everyone else and share the information and all that stuff. So yeah, it's timing is as big a factor as anything.
Yeah, for sure. I literally put a post out this morning. I discovered, I don't know if you saw it, I discovered this agenda that I had written shared in one of my first newsletters, like 2 years ago at least. And it had my weekly agenda, and it had things on there that we were building, which I couldn't even remember. Like, I don't know, Legendary, if you remember what Metaverse Mornings was. It was on my calendar on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like, what the hell was Metaverse Mornings? I don't even know what that is anymore. But then it's also got airdrop season, which was the thing that me and Legendary were building together. It's like this product, a knowledge product. If you buy it, you get access to some protocols. Ironically, it would probably be one of the best value things these days, because it showed people how to do airdrop stuff. We just launched in the bear market, so it was terrible timing. But to your point, Brett, about like distribution, that was the first thing we built, and we were so focused on product, and it was a decent product, but we just couldn't get the message out there at that point in time. Ultimately failed to find product market fit with that. And now you learn, like, the key takeaway was like, yes, first time founders think about product, second time founders think about distribution. And I think that is entirely relevant. Legendary, do you know what Metaverse Mornings was, as we're looking at the weekly agenda on the screen? Do you see anything else dubious from my calendar from 2 years ago? And before we go into the main headlines.
Yeah, it was quite a trip down memory lane to see that post. The Metaverse Mornings, I think we wanted to do an airdrop season show back then and did it for a while, but we also said we need
every day.
Yeah, but we also said we need to do more than just airdrop season content. And I think the Metaverse Mornings was the idea for it to be like the overarching brand of that. But you know what's quite fun? That I forgot that name, you forgot the name, and 2 years later we come back with Modern Market and use the same both words starting with an M.
Yeah, that is pretty hilarious. I have no idea. I have no recollection of what Metaverse Morning was. I don't think it even happened, to be honest. I don't remember going daily. I remember we did like one a week. I do not remember going daily for Metaverse Mornings, but maybe we did. That's what the calendar says.
I think there was the upgrade to go daily and have that like
overarching
name, but I don't think we ever got to that stage.
NFT world as well, that's a blast from the past. That's now rebranded to Hytopia. But that particular airdrop, because I don't know if that was a segment in or segue in from airdrop season or metaverses and vice versa. But that particular airdrop, I remember holding the actual NFT, and then the airdrop was received, and the NFT and the airdrop both pumped. So like that was an incredible, like it was just like an anomaly. But yeah, that was. I think now you can there's like nodes that you can run for Hytopia to earn that, and yeah, it's getting so complicated compared to what it used to be.
Interesting. Crazy blast from the past. Like to look back sometimes and see kind of how far we've come. But sticking on the media topic, we wanted to bring a few reflections on the media landscape. Remember, we've said a bunch of times now that we want to focus on not only the specific like financial markets, but also the media market. And as it moves, given that so much of us are tied to the kind of content creation and our livelihoods are tied to our access to information. And there was an interesting tweet shared by Tim Copeland, who is the editor-in-chief at The Block, one of the main crypto newspapers, not newspapers, like online editorials. He had this to share. I'm going to read it all. I think it was an interesting read and just kind of get our sense of where the landscape is moving so that we know A, where to get our best information, and B, how we can produce quality stuff so that we can capitalize and fill in the gaps that the traditional media are not providing for. He said the disappearing newspaper. The first thing mentioned is really the ways that people consume media. The shift has gone from physical newspapers to online media sites to social media. So the interesting point here is this, like, the online media site is kind of dead. And I was actually reflecting on this personally the other day. Someone asked if we had a website, and I was like, I don't know if we need a website. I don't know if we need a website right here, right now. Maybe at some point it'll become useful, but think of all the people we're reaching at the moment with no actual a traditional homepage of sorts. So that was one interesting reflection. They said what's been lost during that shift is the ability to monetize the content. Newspapers could be sold for money and or contain paid ads. News sites could contain paid ads, but post to Instagram and, well, you have to beg people to click the link. People don't want to consume the content on your website. So what now? Do you post for free? Well, on some sites you can get ad revenue, but it's typically peanuts. If X actually gave decent ad share, sites probably would post directly. Plus, what people want on social media is typically entertainment. This is an interesting conversation. They want a dopamine hit while eating lunch, marking a break from the meeting they just had to endure, and the more to come. This is why there's an increased focus on newsletters and podcasts. Somehow people are still willing to pay for hundreds of subscription-only newsletters. Plus, podcasts can be experienced on social media sites with ads overlaid or audio commentary thrown in. Interestingly, the most successful monetization model is ads that are designed to flow in with the video so people don't skip it. YouTubers like Mr. Beast do this very well. And frankly, you might have noticed one of our strategies at the Modern Market has been like content integrations into interesting segments. We've done that with pump markets, you might have noticed, which I think we did in like an interesting way that no one's really done in that exact way. So where does that leave media sites? Well, largely empty-handed. You have some independents like CoffeeZilla that tried to do media, but in a buzzy YouTube algorithm boosting way. But it comes with a big risk, as it's easier to get done for libel, as Coffee is dealing with and as Legendary is trying to inflict on us today. So in terms of thinking, like, what are the strategies that you can do if you're thinking about trying to produce more content in a better way and thinking of ways to monetize, as many of us are in this space? Here are a few strategies. Trying to use socials to generate enough brand awareness that people come to your site. This is assuming that you even need a site, which I'm actually putting a question mark against. Number two, focusing on podcasts and newsletters as a way to monetize on social media, essentially trying to get people away from social into your own arena that you control a bit more. Using the brand awareness to run crypto events and charging for entry. IRL stuff, I think, is a huge, huge unlock. And I've been thinking about that a lot, but there's a big barrier to entry in the sense that, you know, we're in a global industry here. All four of us right now are in completely different locations. It's hard to sort that sometimes. Building a cult community of loyalists, going fully paid, increasing the ability to connect with and monetize a crypto audience. Legendary, coming to you first. What's your reflection on this piece? Kind of considering whether anyone even needs a home site anymore, whether you're a company, a brand, or an individual creator, because there's lots of people in our audience who are thinking about the commercial side of their content creation, either as a company or as an individual. Like, do they need that central hub? How are you reflecting on this piece?
Yeah, a couple thoughts on it. But to answer your question first on the website, I don't really think per se that you need a website. I actually think that for many people, the Linktree model is enough, as the Linktree link in your X bio, whatever else you're using, and connecting to the other things that you do. I mean, yes, you can build a website, but it's typically not where people will reach you. Assume that Mr. Beast has a website. I have no idea if he has. And I watch his videos. I would never go to his website to see, oh, did he upload a new video to YouTube and is it now linked on his website? Because it's just irritating to do that. I don't want to leave the platform that I've been using before. And that kind of goes to that specific paragraph in Tim's post saying what's been lost during the shift is the ability to monetize the content. I don't think that this is necessarily true. It's true from the perspective of a newspaper, but people were just putting ads in newspapers because newspapers had distribution. And that's exactly what we've been talking about before, that distribution is everything. And if you now find more distribution on someone's YouTube channel, you're more likely to sponsor that than a newspaper. And if for whatever reason a newspaper would have more reach than your favorite financial YouTuber that as a financial institution you wanted to do an advertising with, you would go back to the newspaper. So it's not that the media landscape or anything has like changed or shifted in the sense of how we advertise. It's just you advertise where your audience is, and it just doesn't happen to be the newspaper readers anymore. Wait, B, you're still on mute.
It's definitely not the newspaper readers, but it's also seemingly not the website as such. So interesting reflections there. Sammy, I know you write your own newsletter as well. So that's obviously one place that you kind of direct users to. It's a great read, comes out every Tuesday, I believe. What's your reflection on this piece? Like, do you think these kind of corporate editorials that aggregate news can still survive versus more dynamic individual creators who people build trust with as an individual? In some ways, I feel like the battle that is being fought here is actually corporate versus individual. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think it comes down to the end user and how they want to consume that information. I think that the point around Linktree and having that in your, say, your X or whatever to click on, so if you just open up the post from Kalana, I think it visualizes it perfectly. But I think just having too many points of call, like whether you've got a website, is that your main focus that you want to drive people to? And if it's not, then maybe don't have that, or like have something else. Like for me, I want to drive people to my newsletter to then grow that and kind of get people. And I write that on a weekly basis. So I used to have the link tree in there, but I removed that and just put the Substack link straight away, because I think it's an extra click that then becomes diminishing. Like you're not going to get everyone to come through. They'll click through the first one and then they might not see the newsletter, and then it's just like a waste of time. So it depends on your objective. But I think also you've got, like you covered the news yesterday about Polymarket and integrating the news feed. I think having stuff like that in an app that you use as an end consumer, like if you're there most of the time, you want to have your news easily digestible in the closest way possible as well. So you're not going to go to a separate news site if you can just access it there. And I think that's something that I think we'll see a lot more of. We've seen it with Pump Fun. I think they've got some sort of integration which they announced recently. And I think also just going on the point of distribution, you've got brands that kind of align with like ambassadors. Like they'll try and share their messaging in a way that resonates with audiences. Like it's a different form of news digestion that kind of appeals to different people. And I think people will just end up doing it, digesting it in different ways.
I think what also, because you mentioned, you click once, you don't want to click more than once. It's absolutely true. And I think what adds to that is you land on a platform like Substack where you expect to find content that is written by smart people, and you can read more after reading your newsletter. You go on YouTube, you watch a video, you have recommendations. Like standalone media in isolation doesn't seem to do well anymore. And even if you extend that to entertainment, I've been thinking, what is like one of the few standalone things that is left? And it's actually going to the movies. It's the cinema. That's like the only thing where you see that movie and you don't get like recommendations, stay in for the next 5 movies. You cannot like feasibly, like you could do that and get another ticket, but nobody does that. And it's not marketed this way. So there's like one of the few standalone entertainment forms that is left. And even I just had a look at numbers, even that is down. Obviously cinemas have been down massively during the pandemic, but even in the post-pandemic world, this year alone, ticket sales are down globally 21%, and the decline is increasing more and more. So I just don't think it's necessarily only the battle of like individual versus corporate. It's just that we don't want to do like standalone things that don't have a link to be able to consume more content, do more things on the same platform. And all platforms just try to get you to spend more time on their respective outlets and sites.
And I think also you've got to understand that there's like an evolution of a business model. Like the cinema back in the day was a novelty. You could access films before they were out. They've since swapped to like a membership model where you pay like a monthly fee and you can watch as many films as possible. So similar to like a gym kind of membership. But I just think that's the same with how like the media industry as well. Like people's like, they just don't have the time anymore to sit down and watch the news on TV. It might just be inconvenient. They might be on the move. It's just like how you digest things is changing. So I think that evolution is definitely happening across all these different industries.
One final point on that. Think about our show. Like Beechik and I were always having a laugh in the early days when we had people on stage and saying, I am in a cafe, I am on a ferry, I stopped my car in the middle of the highway to be able to have this take. Like people are consuming content from everywhere. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting stuff. Look, we're going to keep tabs on the evolving nature of the media market, because I genuinely view all of us as significant participants in it. If we're on X, if you're on YouTube in any way, like keeping on top of this stuff is super important to us, getting our message out, building our own audiences, and continuing to be able to participate in the broader market. So we'll keep on touch and in touch with that. Let's get into the main headlines for today. Conscious we only have 20 minutes left, so let's get into the pump fun news first. I think that was probably the main headline from the last 24 hours. Pretty crazy statistics, frankly, coming out of Pump Fun. In the last 24 hours, the revenue is higher than those of the remaining top 20 protocols combined. I'll go through some of the numbers here, then want to go to Bread straight away, who I know has been diving into Pump Fun and their kind of mechanics. So just so you know some numbers, Pump in the last 24 hours did $5.3 million of revenue. In the last 7 days, it's done $10.7 million. So the last 24 hours have been, above average on the last 7 days. In the last month, it's done 33 million. This is first. Tron is second. So Pump is about 4 times higher than Tron, because Tron in the last 24 hours did 1.3 million. ETH is next at 680K. Uniswap's next at 520K. Solana's next at 520K. Aerodrome is next with 296K. Photon is 260K. Lido is at number 9 at 235K. Maker is at number 10 at 220K. So just to get that context, I don't know if people always have that context and kind of how these protocols are lining up against each other. By far and away, the protocol winner and hyper usage at the moment, Brad. What are your thoughts on Pump's more recent hyper usage and hyper fee revenue? And what are your reflections here?
Two main things come to mind. One, my major one is it's pretty clear that this meme coins are the NFTs of this cycle, right? You were right talking about it last week of you wanted to get involved in the trenches because you're missing whatever the wave is of this thing. We've kind of mentioned it off and on the last few months, but it's so clear. So there's that. Two is, I've had my productized the meme coin launch life cycle of Pump. Could you imagine if every single NFT project of last cycle generated out of a single protocol? That's effectively what we're seeing, right? The meta is contained by a category, and they have just dominated the entire category. They are the nexus of all NFT launches from 2020, 2021, right? Which is fucking insane, which is why they're generating as much revenue as they are. We saw crazy numbers last time. We're seeing it this time. Same numbers this time, just concentrated on a single protocol. And then, they're just being really smart about it, right? They're continuing to innovate and continuing to climb up the distribution stack or the life cycle stack of a meme coin launch. They integrated chats. I'm getting some anecdotal data from people that were criticizing me initially when I said, look, they're encroaching on even Telegram now that they're integrating infinite chats inside their stuff. People said, no, that's not true. No one's going to take it from Telegram, which, probably true by and large. But, I had people hitting me up today. They're like, you know what? I'm actually starting to come around. I've been playing in the trenches, and I find myself sticking around in Pump chats. So now they're having even longer user retention. They're becoming even more of the synonymous thing with all meme coins in the entire industry. That's fucking huge, right? That especially with as much money is running through these things. So yeah, it's clear the leader. It's clear meme coins are the thing, and it's clear that they're fucking executing on it. It's crazy.
I love it. We had go on, Legendary.
If you just real quick, if you compare that to OpenSea, because you made the perfect point, Brett, saying they are the winner of this category, and the winner of the NFT cycle last time was obviously OpenSea. If you go to that Dune dashboard and you look at the top monthly fees, say January, 2022. We've seen OpenSea with 194 mil in royalties and 85 million platform fees. And just the fee alone, that translates in their record month to almost 5 mil a day. So very, very similar to what Pump.fun has done yesterday. But
that is a great comparison.
Also shows that how this cycle will also end. And this chart is very similar for Pump.fun at one point. and B, that there's like still way to go if you look at how high the fees were at one point for NFTs, if we think that this cycle still has legs to go.
Okay, I absolutely love this chart and love the comparison. So for the people who are listening in and can't see, do you want to provide a little bit of context? So you just picked out OpenSea's record month of revenue and / activity on their platform and how many fees they generated, and kind of laying that on top of Pump Fund's record month, which they are having right here, right now. Just provide a little bit of context back and forth, like how much later did OpenSea collapse? Obviously, you can't predict the future, but we're just trying to see what kind of relationship or how it played out for OpenSea, and I don't know, try and see if there's any correlation with what's going on with Pump.
Yeah, absolutely. If we maybe go the other way first and look at July 2021, you saw platform fees of 8 mil and royalty fees of 14 mil for the entire month. And then August absolutely escalated with 80 mil in platform fee. So a 6x on that and 154 mil in royalty fee. Then we had that peak that I mentioned before with January. So that was actually the peak, January 2022, with 120 mil in platform fees, not the 90 mil that I said before. That was a month later, and 270 mil in royalty fees. And after that, you had like 3-4 more good months. And then you had May, where platform fees were still at 65 mil. And then in June, they crashed down to 70 mil and have been down ever since. And it's actually, the bar is so small in the current months that it's hard to scroll over it. But if we pick something like May or June 2024, we are at 1 mil platform fees.
So roughly how many months from the top of OpenSea did it take for that bubble in activity to kind of burst?
You had 4 more good months, and then it crashed more than 70%.
Okay. I love that comparison. I think that, look, obviously we don't know the future, can't tell how things don't play out exactly the same. There's usually some type of rhyme in history, but man, that is a good piece of information and interesting data point. Sammy, I want to come to you straight away. What's your reflection on that data point? Then I want to pose 2 opposing positions on Pump and see where we land on it.
I think it's a good comparison to draw, and I think Wab made a post yesterday about that comparison as well. And I think ultimately it comes down to execution. And I think the OpenSea team, there was a number of things that happened. I don't know if you remember the main page where projects were advertised. There was a lot of nefarious activity that ended up, one of the guys ended up getting sacked as a result because he was effectively buying a portion of the project and then doing that. Things like OpenSea deals, it's a great feature. Like you can effectively swap NFTs for NFTs in a trustless manner, but then there's no way of communicating with that particular individual unless you go to Twitter and try and find them on there and communicate. Whereas you look at Pump, it's got that kind of activity integrated within the platform, like a social element. And I think there's certain decisions that the 2 projects are making. Like Pump seems to be shipping and pivoting a lot quicker than OpenSea did. And I don't know if that's just because it got to a size where they had to go through the bureaucracy. They had funding from VCs that effectively meant that they had to get their sign off or whatever. I don't know what the process was, but it just seemed like it was a bit slower and they were a bit out of touch with the market. Whereas I think Pump seems to be in the trenches. You've got people that have founded the project that kind of know the market and they have their finger on the pulse. And I think the way they're pivoting, I think it just seems like a stronger value proposition this time round for this particular market versus the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from a company perspective, I think that's definitely fair. I don't know if a more dynamic OpenSea would save the asset class, though, in the way that it like I don't know if the crash that the NFT market experienced would have been saved by a more dynamic custodian in terms of their marketplace, because I think in the end we were just participating in such a crazy bubble that irrespective of how strong OpenSea were, I don't know if it would have propped up the bubble any further. The only thing that I was wondering, Legendary, that we need to lay over on top of that to double check, because as Sammy said, there was like a bunch of things going on with OpenSea which made them maybe fall off, but then Blur did come in and maybe capture a lot of that activity. Maybe a lot of that activity was wash trading. I don't know. We'd need to filter that out as well. But to see how much the game continued on Blur before it then. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, OpenSea had 3 more months, therefore Pump has 3 more months. It's obviously a bit more of a complex picture, which I think Sam was alluding to anyway. But really interesting data points. I love I love that comparison. One final thing I want to put to you on this point, maybe we'll go to Brad on it straight away, although I already know what his answer is going to be, but I want to hear it out loud before we hit the final headline for the day. Is there were two, I don't know why these opinions are emerging, Brad, but some people are complaining about Pump Fund now, saying that well, I'll just say what Kook said. Kook said, everyone is complaining about Pump Fund right now, but never forget this important fact. Crypto people clicking their own buttons impulsively, getting wrecked, and then trying to offload all blame with vitriol is nothing new. This is actually the only constant across every crypto meta and cycle. But then another very prominent trader, Saint Pump, was a bit more stronger in the criticism of Pump, even as a product and protocol. Said, I think this is by far the worst product that came up this cycle. So much capital that could have ended in legit projects got burned, feeding scammers, cabals, and such. Degens are willing to risk it all for their adrenaline rush on celebrity or racist coins, hoping to pull a 0.001% chance of a 100x and getting out before the rug. Just pure madness.
I hate that.
Which way do you lean on this, Brad? What's your perspective?
This fucking purity test of like everything, like this, anyone with this take is the exact same people that had, like, they coped last cycle, bringing it back to NFTs with NFTs, right? You go, oh, there's actual builders in the space doing stuff, and you're giving it to the guy looking for a pre-sale. But like that money was, it was never gonna go to you, bro, ever. So like so like people cannot separate these two things that exist inside this ecosystem, where you're going to have people doing this shit. You're going to have VCs investing in shit products. You have VCs investing in good products. You're going to have consumers investing in shit products, and consumers like flipping a coin, doing whatever. So like the entire spectrum is going to exist. And I think there's a lot of people who just cannot quarantine this stuff within their own head and say like, okay, like let these things exist and don't let it interfere with my own like thought of how this stuff should move forward. So like, yeah, people are getting wrecked, but yeah, those people are always going to get wrecked, whether it's on crypto or buying fucking Pokemon cards in the secondary market, or it's a scratch card down the street or whatever. Like that person was going to spend that capital, and yes, you're going to get some bleed over in both directions, right? The degen is going to say, I want to break from degen. I'm going to invest in fucking the 37th L2 that's out there because it's an actual building product, which some of those are scams too. And then you're going to have people on the other side that don't degen, that say occasionally I'm going to flip a coin, I'm going to buy some meme coin for exposure stuff. So you get blend both ways. And like, so yeah, I fucking hate it. I like, yes, it's always going to happen. You even see it like all the way up to the Ethereum researchers, right? There's a guy, Peter Zwigley's the head of the client team for Go.
Yeah.
Like,
I've seen.
Right, he's getting all freaked out. He's like, this place is all degenerate. No, like he's getting disillusioned with crypto.
Literally
broadly.
at the top level of Ethereum founders,
The
they start
very
to doubt
top.
themselves. Yeah.
Because the proximity of all of this stuff is so close. And like, I mean, this kind of speaks to the power of crypto. You're one step removed from buying the 737th iteration of a dog turned turtle wrapped in a chicken coin to like world shifting like technology. Like you're changing the monetary policy of entire nation states. Like you're one click removed from swapping those two coins. And there's a lot of people that can't draw the line between the middle and say like both of these things can and will exist because it's the entire spectrum of human like expression on chain. So like I hate them both. Everything extreme. I hate everything extreme. It's all nuanced, and people just need to be able to draw lines.
2 points on that then. I know Funky's had his hand raised for a while. We'll go to him, then we'll get to our final important headline for the day. First thing is, I think the argument about meme coins, you could have very much had the same argument about NFTs, right? There were a lot of people who are more traditionally in crypto who turned their nose up at NFTs themselves and were saying, think about all of the capital, and genuinely think about all the capital that was wasted in the scam NFT teams and all the people who managed to raise a huge amount. And fine, some of them turned out good, but a lot of them didn't. In fact, the majority didn't. And all of that capital could have gone into better stuff, right? But the reality of the market is that there's always going to be, people making their free choice as to what, and it kind of feeds back to the previous point about the media stuff we're talking about. That's why distribution is so important, so that if you do have some world-changing thing, you can actually let people know about it and try to convince them that that's where their capital should be allocated, not to this other stuff. So working on distribution is always the key thing, and taking responsibility for your actions is always the key thing too. Conscious of time, we've just got 5 minutes left. Want to get to the final headline and the Web3 roundup. Funky, your hand's been raised for a while. Welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts?
GM, just a real quick take. Brett kind of highlighted what I was going to say. Anyhow, I find it so interesting that we allow, especially here in the United States, people to get on DraftKings and do whatever and just gamble their faces off, right? No one says anything about gambling. But this is what pump.fun is. If people, it's just degenning, right? Like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like I was even telling you yesterday, B, like my wife, Erin, is now, BBF is doing some of this stuff. She does little $15 buys. She's like, oh, it's down to $12. I got to sell, so some come in for it. But some people just want a YOLO. And I don't think that there's any harm in that. Just let people, if they're going to do that, that's not my thing. I don't do it. I did one pump.fun thing and got rugged with Sammy. I think it was the Hulkamania thing. But just, so just be aware that what you're doing
One of us.
Paper form. It's just gambling. And that's okay. Just gamble. That's okay. Just be okay with gambling.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And Bread's point about the proximity, I think I'd never really thought about it from that perspective, but I think that's completely correct. It's just so hard when I guess you're working on some life-changing tech, world-changing tech, and this thing is so nearby to you. I mean, maybe it should be easier to delineate those two from each other, but for whatever reason, people clearly are finding it difficult. Look, we've got to move on from this one. Interesting discussion there. I think ultimately you want to take responsibility for all of your on-chain clicking. That's probably my main conclusion anyway. But let's hit the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the space in the past 24 hours. Before we get into the wrap Bitcoin conversation, which I think we'll go to Bread to kind of set that up and get some info on. So Web3 Roundup from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, we have PayPal USD on Solana overtaking ETH quantity. Overtaking the amount of PayPal USD on ETH. That's interesting to note. We've got Bitcoin ETFs on pace to hold more Bitcoin than even Satoshi. Satoshi's wallet allegedly has 1.1 million Bitcoin. And so this is, I think the BlackRock ETF is going, fund alone should eventually top the list of holders by late 2025 if it moves at the current rate. Next, crypto project Essential raises $11 million for declarative intent-based blockchain. Next, ETH-L2 transactions reach record highs, with Base contributing the most transactions since the start of July, although the number of active users on ETH-L2s have been declining for 4 consecutive weeks. Based launches with 50% available for Based NFT mentors. That was on the NFT side. Not an official coin, but just something for Base NFT minters. And finally, Revolving Games shares their strategic partners, including Zagabond, Lucanet, and some other prominent founders. Brad, we don't have much long left for today's show, but I do think the piece of information people might want to know about is this Coinbase Wrap Bitcoin, because we talked about the original Wrap Bitcoin product moving or kind of transferring ownership a little bit, diversifying ownership, with Justin Sun getting involved. The key takeaways for this piece of news is that Coinbase's potential CBBTC product follows closely after BitGo's controversial Wrap Bitcoin management changes. Wrap Bitcoin tokens allow Bitcoin to be utilized on non-Bitcoin blockchains, primarily ETH. Coinbase had an official tweet where they literally said CBBTC coming soon. What are your thoughts on this, Brad? I know you dive a lot into the kind of relevance of each chain, the merits of each chain. What do you think of Bitcoin coming to Ethereum via Coinbase?
We're down to a minute, so I'm gonna make it short. Buy coin. Okay, like, extend it just a little bit. Like, it's just commentary on, like, again, Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, Coinbase, Base, all these things. Like, they have established such a structural, like, moat in this ecosystem. They have their tendrils in fucking everything, right? They're productizing it just same way that Pump.Fun is, right? So if you view the entire landscape of blockchain today, and any modicum of institutional connection that it has, Coinbase has at least one, maybe several toes in each of those things, right? Whether it's launching a blockchain, having a blockchain, like custodying the actual tokens, like now bringing, taking over the entire DeFi aspect of Bitcoin potentially, now that they've seen a little bit of weakness, right? Like, they're a trusted entity, they're leveraging that to establish their moat even further. Like, it's just like they're so diversified within this space, and they cover basically everything that, man, like it's I could not be more bullish on that company and what they're doing. Whether or not it's good or not for the space, I think it's net good. But like they're getting to the point where they have so much that it's like, all right, these guys are kind of taking over everything. We gotta be careful.
Yeah, just quietly taking over everything. And people have to be bullish on them because they're kind of fighting the good fight on against the government in the States. Interesting point from yesterday. We've got to close up in a second, but remember how yesterday we looked at that tweet, or the day before, where someone was pointing out like, well, why isn't Coinbase getting involved with Wrap Bitcoin? Like, why are they not buying it? Well, you don't need to worry about that because they're just going to make their own.
Yep.
Exactly. So interesting stuff. Guys, we have had an interesting show. That is the conclusion for today. As always, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST for 1 hour. We're live on X, we're live on YouTube, and we publish to Spotify and Apple Podcasts if that is where you prefer to consume your media. Thanks again to my legendary co-hosts, legendary Brad and Sammy. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care and goodbye. See you.